Hey guys, I'm Iggy, and this is the first time I'm doing this, so bear with me. This is super impromptu, zero production value. I'm just making use of what I have right now. So before anything else, I just want to hope that everyone is safe at home. If you're out, I hope you're practicing social distancing. And if you're a frontliner, please do know that we are thankful for your service. We're here to support you, and we're here to make sure that your efforts don't go unnoticed. So because of COVID-19, let's just say that I found some extra time. And I was quite disappointed because I claimed this year to be the year that I tried out new things and actually stuck to it. And I was at a good start. The start of the year, I was able to officially sign up on this public speaking organization that I've been thinking about for a while, Toastmasters. I was able to resign from my first job and land a new job. But before I could get anything else done, quarantine. It was disappointing, yeah, but if you think about it, this is a perfect opportunity for us to do the things that we've never had the time for. And I don't think an opportunity like this is coming again anytime soon. And I don't think this pandemic is going anywhere anytime soon, so you gotta make the most out of it. So I started this page, Illustrado, and it's meant to be my online portfolio. And this is my way of showcasing my work, throwing myself out there, sharing ideas to fellow designers, and maybe even meet someone who needs help designing their own homes. So if you're interested, DM me. So I've been posting the projects that I've been working on all quarantine. And I thought it would be cool if I just shared my process on how I came up with these designs. So I'm going to start with the Talisay House, which is the very first project that I posted on this page. And I'm going to do it in 3 parts. In this video, I'm going to cover context and concept. So let's get it. In school, we were taught to follow this format that started with a project brief, project objective, design considerations. My approach is kind of similar. I just tweaked the process a bit just to tailor fit it to this project. When I approach context, I like to break it down into the fundamentals. So those are the W questions. Who, what, where, and why. When is not really a factor with this project, so we're going to skip over that. To answer the first question, who are we designing for? Who's going to live in the house? Who's going to occupy the house? Who's going to stay in the house? For the Talisay House, it's dedicated to my family, and that's the Salandanan family. So that's the who. Next, we go into the what. So what is the Talisay House? The Talisay House is an ancestral house. And we also envision it as a vacation house and possibly the house that some of our family members will retire in. So a retirement home. And then where? Where is the Talisay House? The Talisay House is located in Sorsogon City in the Bicol region, Philippines. More specifically, it's in the N. Reyes Street, formerly known as Talisay to the locals. So that's why it's called the Talisay House. And then why? So I also mentioned before that we see it as a vacation home, a retirement home, possibly an Airbnb, maybe. But above all things, I'm redesigning this house to preserve my grandfather's legacy, my lola's legacy. He was the one who built the house. He was an engineer. He was also the mayor at the time. And why we need to preserve this legacy of his is that although a lot of us, including me, I wasn't able to reach him because he died of an early age, we still want to honor him as the cornerstone of this family. Okay, so now that we have context, we have to formulate questions. And why we have to formulate questions is because proper design provides solutions. The goal of design is to always solve problems. That's what separates design from art. And we don't have to be too literal. We don't always have to have actual problems to solve. The idea is to make things better, because if we're not going to make things better, then why bother? So this is where the how questions come in. And the type of questions that we're going to ask will depend on the questions that we asked earlier, so that our solutions will be based on our context. So those were the who, what, where, and why questions. Now, with regards to who, Salandanan family. So how to design a house for the Salandanan family. It's that simple. With regards to what, I'll be focusing on the vacation house aspect. How to design a vacation house. With regards to where, Sorsogon City. How to design a house in Sorsogon City. Why? Preserving my grandfather's legacy. How to preserve my grandfather's legacy through design. So the idea is to paint a broad picture and slowly chop off the non-essentials so that we come up with solutions that are based on the context and we arrive at a concept that's tailor-fit for this project. Now that we've formulated our questions, we're going to go over each one again, and that's where we're going to draw our design objectives from. So for the first question, how to design for the Salandanan family, we're going to talk about my family. The way I'm going to approach it is I'll break it down into 3 key aspects. So that's size, interests, and general character. So for the size, we're a lot. We're a big family, and when I say family, I'm not just talking about my immediate family. I'm talking my cousins, my titos, my titas, but mostly in the first circle. We're plenty. Every time we go out, we're at least a minimum of 20 at a time, and yeah, we're a lot. So for interests, we love to get together. Every chance we get, we want to see each other, make it a point to gather as a family. So we like to celebrate by eating a lot. We cook, we drink, we chill. We're clingy, basically. For general character, so when I say general character, it's the personality that you're gonna base your aesthetic from. The way that I would describe my family is that it's somewhat traditional. The older generations are traditional, fine. The younger generations, my generation, we're a lot more open-minded about things. We're progressive, but we're not exactly liberated. But as a whole, I would characterize our family as somewhat traditional. We've talked about my family, and now the question is, how do we formulate our design objectives off of that? We tackle 3 key aspects: the size, our interests, and our general character. Knowing that my family loves to get together, architecturally, I could relate that most to common spaces. Why? Because this is the area where people interact, this is where people mingle. Knowing that, making that connection, we could come up with a design objective that goes like, to create a space for family gatherings by designing open common areas. Why open? Because we don't want to divide the family when they interact with each other. As much as possible, we want to have this open space where they could freely mingle with one another. Now, for size. We know that my family is big, and when we have guests over, we could be even more. How do we address that? We address that by making the space bigger. Now, how do you make the space bigger when you're confined to a limited space? You scatter it around the house. With that in mind, you could come up with an objective that goes to accommodate additional family members and visitors by designing multiple common areas around the house. This way, you don't cram everyone in a tight space and you maximize the use of your house. Now, general character. We know that my family is somewhat traditional, somewhere in the middle. So how do we address that? We address that by creating a balance between old and new. So with that, you could come up with a design objective that goes to design a modern yet homey atmosphere by pairing familiar pieces and materials within you. Now, we use the term homey because I just want to give that feeling that it's not too old looking, because you could be traditional but not look old. Now we already have 3 design objectives just off of one question. So let's move on to the next. How to design a vacation house. Now, to answer this, we first have to answer what is a vacation and why do people go on vacations. So I would say a vacation is time spent away from home, and people go on vacations simply to relax and to unwind. With that in mind, a vacation house is a house away from home where you can relax and unwind. So how do we achieve that? We differentiate the experience. So let's compare experiences. My family is mostly based in Metro Manila, and almost all of us live in condos. So the biggest downside to condo living is that we don't have the luxury of having gardens right outside of the doorstep. So the biggest factor that differentiates the experience between the two is nature. So you could come up with a design objective such as to create a fresh experience by integrating architecture with nature. And I say architecture with nature because nature is constantly changing and architecture will always adjust. So next question, how to design a house in Sorsogon City? So to answer this, we must answer what makes Sorsogon unique, or more specifically, what makes Talisay unique. And we could dive deep into this, we could go into history, but I'd rather focus on the present day context. So what makes Talisay unique? Physically, not much. So we don't have to force the issue, because if I showed you a picture of the street and asked you where it was, you wouldn't know where it was. There's not much to make it distinct from other provinces. So what I'd rather do is what makes it unique to the context of city living. We must remember that Sorsogon is a province, and provincial living and city living is vastly different. The main difference between city living and provincial living is that provincial lifestyle, I would say, lacks boundaries. Boundaries meaning privacy. Because in the province, people come and go. People know each other. Everyone knows each other. I don't even know the person who lives across the hall from me. Knowing this, we want to keep that lifestyle that we're constantly in touch with the people around us, but still have that privacy to live in peace. So with that, we could come up with a design objective such as to maintain privacy in a provincial setting with the use of proper zoning. So down to the last question, how to preserve my lolo's legacy. So to answer this, we must ask the question, how is this house distinctly my lolo? More importantly, distinctly my lolo in our family's eyes, because it could be interpreted in many other ways. So my lolo wasn't really an artist. He didn't have a particular style when he made this house. Elements of this house is also common in other provincial homes, and we can't use experience inside this house as a basis because not everyone may relate to that. If you ask one of my family members to identify a house based on an experience, it's highly possible that they don't recognize this house. So we have to take it at face value. And with my experience walking around the area, what makes this house distinct and what makes it striking is its silhouette, because it's the only house that has that kind of shape. So with that in mind, we could come up with a design objective that goes to design a house that echoes family history by preserving the silhouette of the original house. Now we have 6 design objectives that were based off of the questions we formulated from the context. Now the next step is to finally formulate our design concept. So how do we do this? We get our design objectives and narrow it down even further and reduce it to keywords, key concepts. From my design objectives, I got 7 keywords: open, cozy, modern, maximized, nature, private, and history. These are our objectives in a nutshell, basically. And what I would do next is I would group like terms. I would group together open, maximized, and private. I would group together cozy, modern, and nature, and then I would leave history on the side. Open, maximized, and private, if I were to reduce it even more into just a single word, I would relate it to the word lifestyle, because this is how we live. It basically pertains to how you live inside the house. Now, with the group of cozy, modern, and nature, I would relate this most to the word luxury, because this gives a sense of comfort and grandness. And history, I would just rephrase it into heritage. So now that we have 3 words, lifestyle, luxury, and heritage, I would go even further and combine the words lifestyle and heritage into provincial. Why? Because our family history originated from the province, and provincial lifestyle is such a key concept to this project. Finally, we end up with 2 words, and this is our design concept: provincial luxury. Now that we finally have our design concept, we can base off all our future decisions on this. And the beauty of having this organized flow of ideas is that whenever we run into a mental block or creativity block, we could always revisit this process, retrace our steps, and remember the core ideas of our design. So just to recap, we established our context with the W questions. From there, we formulated our H questions or how questions. Then from there, we got our design objectives. we reduced it down to keywords, and finally we formulated our design concept. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a thing or two, and maybe you could apply it to your own process. If you have any questions, comment it down below. And if you like my content, please follow.